And now let's meet up with the hospitality frontline who are facing with this challenging situation every single day. So for that, please be introduced the moderator of the operational panel discussion, Mr. James Young, Vice President, Resource Planning and Development, WMC Group. Mr. James, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon. Very nice to be back in familiar surroundings. And Mauro, thank you very much for the invitation. In March, somebody sent me a cartoon saying, you remember the film Titanic? And you remember the band playing as the Titanic sank? Well, that's the hospitality industry in this global COVID situation. And Mauro's analogy of holding our breath, I think, was a very good one, because we've been holding our breath for a long time. But we're very fortunate to be here in Vietnam today. And I'd like to introduce our panel to discuss a few points, but in no particular order of age or seniority. Could I start? Mr. Dushant, Country Head, Vietnam and Thailand for OYO, please. And Morgan, Director of Rooms at the Caravel Hotel. And Ignacio, Senior Director of Operations Asia Pacific for Melia Hotels International. Thank you very much. And Craig Douglas, Chief Operating Officer of the Grand Ho Tram Resort and Casino. And last but by no means least, Douglas Loudon, Partner of Hotel Asset Management Department at Savills Hotels, please. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And I think lots of questions, I'm sure, but maybe it's best to just start by giving us a quick overview of how things are at the moment. Ignacio, maybe you'd like to start.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. And first of all, I'm very, very happy to be here. I think it's a good news that we can welcome more than 300-400 people. So we wish to do this in Indonesia or Malaysia, and we are not able to do it. So I think we have to congratulate ourselves to be here and spend some time together. I don't know how much you know about Melia Hotels. We call ourselves a family international company. Why family? Because the founder of the company, he's in fact the chairman of the company, and his son is the CEO, right? So the family still control more than 50% of the company, which make our company different maybe to other companies. We got to Vietnam a long time ago, 25 years ago, opening our flagship Melia Hanoi, and we were very quiet for an important number of years. Then we opened Melia Da Nang, and after Melia Da Nang, with other countries focused as well, my company very focused traditionally in the south of Europe and the Caribbean, especially in countries like Cuba, Dominican Republic, and Mexico. We decided to put the focus in Vietnam and the Southeast Asia. We are running right now 8 hotels, and we plan to open about 9 hotels in the next 3 years in different locations. Let me start with some good news, right? Because I think it's time to, the good news is not only coming from China, where definitely we are running 6 hotels with already occupancy that more than 75% of occupancy, and some hotels giving GOP of 40%. And so we are doing budget in China, just looking at 2019, and when we are looking at budget in Bali or Koh Samui, the film is completely different. But we have good news as well here in Vietnam. So we have Melia Ho Tram, which is a beautiful resort, 2 hours driving distance from Saigon, where it was interesting to see how we managed this crisis, because we were At the same time, we were closing hotels in China. Then when we were opening hotels in Vietnam, then we started closing in hotels in Bali, etc., etc. But Melia Hotran was there, even in the worst, in March, February. The hotel kept occupancy of about 25% overall, and some weekends even 50, 70%, for sure. I mean, controlling having all the protocols on site, etc., etc. But we were running like two speeds, you know, closing hotels and then having hotels like Melia Hotran with high occupancy, right? But not only Melia Hotran, as well Melia Bavi is as well a beautiful mountain retreat hotel close to Hanoi. Actually already doing 50-60% of occupancy, weekends full. And Phu Quoc, traditionally as well focused in overseas market, especially in winter. But when we reopened in May, the hotel in May did a 55% of occupancy. And June, July, we got to 70%, 60-70% until the Da Nang case, all right? So it's not only bad news. We have as well good news to share, all right?
Well, that's great. I think we should give Ignacio a round of applause for some good news. Morgan, how are things going in Ho Chi Minh City?
Wonderful. Record numbers this year.
Yeah, a bit of a zoo out there. Yeah.
Well, as everyone knows, city hotels, we are suffering. We were planning for a much better year this year, especially at Caravel. We just finished a comprehensive renovation of all the rooms and meeting space. And this came around. What do you do about it? You can't create demand. Right now, mitigate your risks, protect your brand, look after your guests, look after your owners, and try to get through this year. Hopefully Q3, Q4 next year, looking more positive. We'll see what happens during the elections in the US in November. I think after the inauguration, that will have an effect on international travel. It's not that the US sets the tone for the world, but it does help other people open up. Let's see how that goes this year.
Okay, thank you. Dushyant, with your many different business models, how are things going for Oyo?
So let me very briefly give a background of Oyo Hotels and Homes, if you guys are not aware of. We're one of the largest small, medium hotel franchises around the world. In terms of the number of rooms, we're definitely one in the top 10. World's largest hotel rooms, Oyo. And what we have done, especially during this time, we have presence across 80 countries. Speaking specifically about Vietnam, we have about 450 hotel partners that we work very, very closely, spread across 15 cities. So we've coverage across all the cities. And especially in this pandemic, it has hit everybody really, really hard, including us. So there is no sort of outgrowing that fact. But what has really been strategic and very important for us is the three strong pillars. One, the customers, the strength of our relationship of our customers, of our hotel partners, and the technology backbone. We strongly believe that the technology backbone that we have is very, very important and even critical during this time to navigate us through this crisis. And that's where we are actually doubling down our bets on technology and really the core, going back to the core, really doubling down on the bet around technology and activating all sorts of models and everything that we can really find out during this time. And we have been able to at least recover, especially if considering that Oyo app has been the fastest recovery that we have seen, has been on Oyo app amongst all the other channels that our hotels are listed on. So that's been a strong signal. Focusing on technology and operational efficiency is going to be the key driver, and that's what we strongly believe. And our focus is going to be around that in the next 6 months to 1 year to come.
Okay, thank you. Now, I don't want to say this end of the table, there's a lot of experience, especially in Vietnam. Craig, how are things going at the drive-by destination, as it were, of choice for many people.
Yeah, look, actually, being based in Ho Chi Minh, we're quite fortunate in the current situation to be within a drive market. I think that's quite obvious. And the casino's been doing okay as well on the casino floor and also in the hotel and the golf course part of the whole complex. Is considering the current market has been doing quite well, all things considered. And so we've been quite fortunate in that. We push on. We do a lot of work to hit the domestic market, but obviously the domestic market and the local expatriate market are the only markets everyone's got at the moment. So we're quite fortunate to be in that situation. Lodgis, the owning company, which I'm also involved with from an asset management perspective, we own the Fusion Hotel Group and also involved in the Sofitel Metropolitan Hanoi. That's a different. Some of those locations are a little bit more challenging. Look in Hanoi, for example. Hanoi, being the city hotel, is generally struggling a little bit more than some of the immediate drive destinations from the two capitals. So, but yeah, all in all, in the casino, we're doing, all things considered, it's we don't take it for granted at the moment. Day by day, week by week, month by month, and you keep pushing on. But at the moment, things are. We're keeping our head above water.
Well, that's good to hear. So, Douglas, from your vantage point, how do you see things as they are at the moment?
In terms of full disclosure, when it comes to hotels, I'm a glass half empty type of guy. So even when they're at 100%, there's still an opportunity to make some money somewhere. And Mauro told me to be very upbeat. So just give me a moment while I go to my happy place. We're doing okay. We're certainly doing a lot better than a lot of other destinations in the region. I have hotel assets in Cambodia, in the Philippines, in Thailand, and it's difficult. But we are fortunate here in Vietnam that we've got through COVID better than most, and that we have a pretty buoyant domestic market, which I think for some hotels didn't even realize it existed. They were heavily dependent on inbound traffic. So yes, the fundamentals are good. It's a challenge. I think we're managing our way through it. Let's get rid of 2020 and move on.
Yeah, I think everyone in the room would agree with that sentiment. Dushan, you mentioned technology and the pickup on your app, and I think this is one thing McKinsey was saying, that COVID has accelerated the adaptation of technology in general. As operators, what changes are you seeing, and what changes are you going to need to make in your business model going forward?
Absolutely. I think technology is going to be the key, and especially innovation in the hotel space. I think that's going to be really key in the recoveries that's going to come. So to answer your question, I would definitely like to highlight that what we have seen, especially in Southeast Asia, is that people are not experimenting a lot more. By that, what I mean is 70% of our customers are actually repeat customers. And business travelers that have started traveling, they're staying at the same place. They're very aware of. They know that they can have a safe, hygienic environment, and they repeat. So repeat customers has really increased, especially in Southeast Asia. That's a very clear trend. Second trend that we see is policies. So we've made our apps and very, very flexible policies around booking to accommodate the business travelers, especially in these uncertain times. And they need all the help that they can from a flexible approach, especially when it comes to booking flexibility. Second, what we also do see is that groups and the business delegation tends to be very, very small, and they're very small now. So that's a small, secure, safe space is what people want in these times. And we started a new program, and this was all driven because what we saw in data, and we started sanitized stay. So we've come up with a complete standard operating procedure for small and medium-sized businesses on how to hygienically make sure that the customers are safe, the staff stay safe, and we have an entire very, very detailed standard operating procedure laid out, and we mark those hotels as sanitized stays to ensure that we get the right travelers, and we are able to really capture the demand even in these lean times.
Yeah, thank you. I think it is an interesting point, actually, when you talk about small groups. Certainly I've read elsewhere that big ballrooms like this, which were traditionally seen as a huge asset, and I think it's an interesting one, not for this panel, but for future discussion, is hotel development going to change because of COVID? So I think one of the other panels can discuss that a bit more. You mentioned hygiene. Morgan, what are you doing at an operational level to assure guests from a hygiene point of view?
See, that's exactly the question. You can do everything operationally perfect, is hygienic, is clean, but how do you communicate it to your guests? Do you want it to be in your face, where people are worried when they walk in because it's too much? Do you want it to be subtle? When they walk in, they feel comfortable. For me, it's very much about allaying fears, not just as a hotel, but also as a destination. People are afraid of traveling. People are afraid of going to certain areas. People are afraid of getting on an airplane, right? We need to be making hygiene communicated where it allays those fears to increase the travel again and open things up.
Okay. It's, I think what's interesting to see is the difference between branded hotels and individual properties and how they are approaching the issue. Ignacio, from Milia's point of view, how are you addressing the hygiene question from a global perspective?
Yeah, as we are running hotels in different parts of the world, the company decided to create a program called Stay Safe with Melia. So in collaboration with Bureau Veritas in Europe, this program has been a huge amount of hours and work since the virus started in China. So we were lucky to have hotels in China. So when everything started, we created this program, and then we amplified to the rest of the countries. With Bureau Veritas, what we are doing is at least 30% of our hotels in each division must be audited, all right? And then 100% of the hotels are audited by our global internal audit department, all right? So we have been very demanding implementing this program. It doesn't matter if it's in a third-tier city in Indonesia or it's in Barcelona, New York, all right? So that is guaranteeing us to standardize all the protocols worldwide.
Okay. We are a very people-focused industry, of course, and I think all the operators, our passion is for people, and every operator globally has had to make some very painful decisions. Craig, can I just ask you, when it comes to cutting costs, what do you think? Is it a real saving in the long run when you're cutting costs because of an immediate issue? Or should you be trying to hold on for as long as possible because of the long-term damage that might do to your employer brand, to your business, whatever?
Give me the good question, didn't you?
I've got a good one for Douglas in a minute.
Look, I think there's no perfect solution, quite frankly, right? You can just do the best you can. At the end of the day, for us as a company, you're only as good, your business is only as good as the people that are working there, right? So you can't run like for example, the casino, 540 rooms with multiple food and beverage outlets, a casino that goes 24/7. You can't do that with two people, obviously, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of human element to the business. So for us, like we sort of you know, you have to, I think, make some adjustment. I don't think there's any question about that, especially to survive. You know, there's a lot of responsibility. You're protecting the interests of the people working with you. You're protecting the interests of the shareholders, right, that have injected millions and millions of dollars into a business that obviously have, you know, some sort of debt to pay unless they're paid cash, which is highly unlikely in this day and age. So it's a balancing act, and I'm trying to skirt around the exact, the exact answer, but well, I think, look, you have to adjust. I think everyone in any hospitality business globally is having to adjust to a certain degree, and each business based on the location and the sort of business levels you're able to obtain. Like I was mentioning before, Ho Tram has certainly probably been the least affected in probably an entire country. I think the Melia and the casino, to a certain extent, are in a little bit of a bubble down there, especially on getting the Friday, Sunday business. But if you're in a city hotel, it's a completely different situation, right? The city hotels certainly are finding it a bit more challenging, so they've probably had to do a lot more adjustment in terms of maybe reducing manpower, you know, working with vendors to try and balance that out as well. Things like that. So you're looking at it from every angle, but again, I think it just depends on the business. We've certainly made some adjustments, I think, in all areas, but you know, we try and keep the ball moving as well as we can.
Yeah. Douglas, thank you, Greg. Douglas, leading on from that a little bit, how do you think the owner-operator relationship has changed because of COVID?
Oh, that was a good one, yeah. I think the relationships are still there. I mean, obviously, we're all in this together. The owners are in many cases hurting. The operators are also doing it tough right now. Obviously, their fee income is significantly reduced. Certainly in the hotels I've been involved in, the owners and the operators are working closely together to do whatever they can to reduce costs and to try and sort of bring things in line. I do sort of feel that the operators obviously want to get back to normal as quick as possible. The owners are more on the point, well, let's hold off until we can see some real green shoots coming through and that borders are open, etc. So people want to get back to full payroll as soon as they can, etc., for those on reduced payroll. So there is a little bit of to and fro on that side.
Yeah. Do you think the asset-light model practiced by many international companies, has it had its day due to COVID?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, the asset-light model is great when you've got fantastic fee income coming in from multiple hotels all over the world. With this sort of global crisis, yes, the big brands, the Intercontinentals, the Marriotts, etc., are struggling now because their cash flow is seriously impacted.
Yeah. Ignacio, I don't want to put you on the spot moving straight to an operator after that, but Financial Times ran an article last week talking about the demise of business travel, which for most major brands is a key source of revenue generation. Do you think business travel will ever return to pre-COVID levels?
Yeah, well, I think we have to see this case by case, you know, country by country, location by location. You know, we are as many people in this room, we are working in the 2021 budget with different assumptions. So in China, as I said before, it's nothing very different to 2019, but in places like Bali, we don't expect to recover until fourth quarter 2021, right? So I would say we better go place by place and location by location. Definitely, what we see is we are increasing our direct channels. You know, our melia.com, you know, and is generating worldwide 70% of the revenues, right? So that's a good news for the company. This morning, for example, I was talking to one of, our flagship in China, and the GM was telling me, I was asking, what is the difference between, now to 6 or 9 months ago before the COVID-19? And in terms of segmentation, I think maybe something we need to see that could happen, something different, something very similar, in Vietnam, is that he was telling me, well, corporate is definitely decreasing. OTAs and data channels are, moving up. Wedding business is doing extremely good again. So people are coming back to, celebrate and small events and big events. And then operationally speaking, our hotels, what we are seeing is that labor cost is which is one of the headache. We are decreasing, significantly in China, right? So hotels that we were having like 35% of labor costs, now we are running with 28, right? Because the staff is becoming more multitask. Okay, so due to the COVID-19, we minimize the labor cost impact.
Morgan, if I could just pick that up. Obviously, labor is such a huge factor in our business. In this current situation, how are you remaining an employer of choice? And what advice would you give to everyone here?
You're not going to be able to do it with increasing salary levels at the moment. You're not going to be able to do it with going to 100% salaries. It is very much how you treat people at the moment. Keeping morale up, keeping motivation up, job enlargement, job combination. However, whatever efficiencies and optimizations we get from this, the knee-jerk reaction upon some recovery from the operator is to go back to normal. We shouldn't. Keep the optimities, keep the efficiencies. Why should we return these cost savings when we haven't fully recovered and our owners haven't got all their money back? But right now, very much it's keeping morale up in hotels, right? People are being paid less and guests are still expecting the same service.
Yeah. And I think that is a very interesting point. Guests are still expecting us as operators to deliver the same experience. And I stress experience, as Mauro mentioned earlier. Craig, we talked about job combination, or Morgan mentioned that, and so on. What's the opportunity for Vietnam here? We are all here as expatriates, and I always think that we are here helping Vietnam develop. Has COVID accelerated that development? From an employer point of view and a talent development point of view. With COVID, in Vietnam, because of the labor situation, has COVID helped to accelerate the development of local talent?
Yeah, I think yes. I think, obviously you look more in your backyard now than ever before, right? And because if you are looking to fill a position, if you're looking at expatriates, you're very limited from choice because obviously you can't get into the country as well. So, but also I think it's more about sustainability. We certainly in Ho Tram really sort of look to promote within, and a lot of our executive roles are filled with Vietnamese talent who do an excellent job, and we're encouraging that even more. And I think we're looking more into training, looking forward, really coaching potential executives that can grow into roles as well. And I think that's very important. I think this current climate has accelerated that because we are in Vietnam and the talent is growing month by month, not year by year, and the experience and the quality, and why not? And I think it's a good thing. It creates a sustainable environment, and I think that's, if anything, that's what this situation has made us look at. You've got to have a sustainable business model that is adaptable. Look at the moment, we were flying in July, and then obviously what happened in Da Nang? August went tanked completely for everybody. Didn't matter which location you're in. So, to answer your question, and I think, and you look at the Vietnamese, the local talents coming up through the executive ranks, more GMs coming on board, more director of F&Bs, all these key positions, and I think that's just going to increase, and it has accelerated that, I think.
Okay. Dushyant, are operators still providing value for money?
Absolutely. And I think
I thought you might say
so I think at least for us,
in a minute.
In the segment that we operate in, what we do see, as I mentioned earlier as well, that technology is going to be the core driving force, especially for a sustainable recovery. And what I mean by technology, I gave one example around the policies that we are implementing. But what we are also doing is we are actually understanding, especially in the new normal, which are the destinations which are going to be much more accessible. How many people fit in for example, like how many people fit in the car, 4 people groups going to 1 hour outside of the city. And these are where we need to really ramp up in terms of our supply. And so some of these are already put in place. So technology is driving our supply acquisition. Technology is driving customization of CRM by actually identifying potential travelers, whether business or leisure, where they would go and what kind of hotel would they stay in. So we are actually implementing and executing as we speak on all of these fronts, and the benefit of this directly goes to the asset owners because they're able to maximize and monetize their assets much more. And what we've also seen is a shift from corporate travelers actually moving away from a very big inventory hotel to a smaller inventory hotel, and that puts us in a better spot. And we've already seen this happening, especially in China, where recovery is already a long way ahead compared to where Vietnam is. Vietnam currently, because of all international restrictions, we focus on the domestic travel, but even in this, taking the weekends out, we still see the maximum recovery coming from a Ho Chi Minh or a Hanoi, traditionally around the business aspects. So we are seeing technology as a lever in every single aspect, whether it's supply acquisition, customer demand, and monetizing, and maximizing the monetization of the asset for the asset owner. So we do strongly believe that we do provide value, even in these times, if not more.
So, Douglas, monetization of the asset, from your vantage point, would you like to comment? Counter that?
Yeah. Trump Biden debate here now, but I didn't interrupt. The owner-operator relationship has always been heavily in favor of the operator. The operator has an agreement that gives them carte blanche to run the hotel and have a lot of control, and the owner's left to pay all the bills. I think this whole COVID experience is going to hopefully give us a chance to rethink that relationship. I think there has to be a lot more pressure put on the operators saying, you're in charge of my asset, you've got to deliver. And if you don't deliver, I have the right to say goodbye. So I think 25-year, 30-year management contracts might become a thing of the past. I think franchising is going to become a far more common practice, certainly here in Asia. It's common in Europe, it's common in the US, but I think franchising is going to be something more commonly used by owners here.
Certainly, I think franchising, and from my experience in the Middle East and talking to colleagues in the Middle East, many of the major hotels there are moving towards a franchise model already, and that's been accelerated by the COVID situation. We haven't touched yet on the sharing economy and the prospects for the likes of Airbnb, which in many destinations was a significant competitor. Dushyant, as an exponent of the sharing economy, is there a future for the likes of Airbnb?
I think one of the trends that does support us is actually, again, what we are seeing, especially for our customer segment, is a move towards smaller and independent hotels, which very less inventory. We are actually seeing less than 10-room hotels, and people really pushing in demand through that as long as they have a hygienic stay. So I do see...
So how would, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm being a moderator, not Donald Trump. How are those small hotels going to be able to guarantee the hygiene?
So we've put in place a very detailed standard operating procedure where we are actually pushing, and a majority of our hotels now do have a sanitized stay mark that we are actually providing certification around the entire SOP if it's followed, which provides a very hygienic stay. And just to give you some numbers to support it, actually what we've seen is that almost a 1.8 times RevPAR from our sanitized stay properties, and that's at the booking time on how the customers are actually making that decision. So which is supporting our view of actually these certifications, especially in the very, very small and independent hotels in the unbranded segment. And this is really driving that value.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, any of you like to comment on that? Because, I mean, Morgan, for example, yes.
Yeah.
If 10 different hotels are offering the same sanitization, what is the value add to the consumer?
No, I completely...
I mean, if you have a 10-room, 300-room, 400-room, 500-room, what is the consumer psychology on the purchase? So for me, it's also depending on the individual and the markets, right? Would you feel comfortable staying at a 1,000-room hotel at the moment?
I think there's a good chance.
So it really depends, right? And that's going to affect development in the future also, right? Do you really want to put up a 1,000-room hotel at the moment? Sorry, Craig.
Yeah.
No, I think just on that, you know, there is some sort of, you know, if you're staying in a certain property with a certain reputation and a certain brand, potentially, there becomes potentially a comfort factor with that. Right? That, okay, things are being done right, the hygiene's being done right, rooms being cleaned right, et cetera, right? So I think it's, you know, to me, you know, Airbnb, you know, everyone has short memories, right? Unfortunately, at the end of the day, once we get out the other side, you know, a year, two down the track, it'll all be back to normal. So they're certainly not going to die. I think there's, as to the speed in which they sort of ramp up post-COVID, well, that's, you know, that's an unknown. I think no one has any idea in the industry on how fast it's going to pick up, but it's certainly not gone. I think it'll certainly recover.
Yeah, I think one of the key learnings of this year is that forecasting what is going to happen is a pretty difficult thing to do, if not impossible. Do we have time for some question from the floor?
I think we have time for one question.
One question. Oh, it better be a good one. Sir.
Are you serious? Are you really gonna...
You can forget the microphone.
Let me get the crystal ball out and just start waving around.
No, so it's because I've been having massive debates with my headquarters on this. Everybody is either, because I only three scenes which going to happen. Either we can show growth, degrowth. Though people wanted to be back to 2019, I don't find any logic on or any science whether we ever can come back to that numbers. What is your take across the board?
Well, maybe, sorry, you fire away.
Oh, I think, I don't know what everyone else is doing, but all the hotels we're involved with, you know, we're doing multiple scenarios.
Yeah.
So this has been the hardest, longest budgeting process in the history, I think, at the moment. With shareholder, you know, management companies. I know the guy, because Hotram, when we rebrand, is going to be a franchise on that as well. But the management company guys, I know the GMs have been doing countless amount of budgets for their head office. Then you got the shareholders that want a different scenario and all that sort of thing. So, but to answer your question, look, we're doing several scenarios. And then we're just going to adapt when we do those. You know, it could be a partial recovery midway through. and then maybe not recovering for the whole year, and then maybe an earlier recovery sort of in the second quarter. And it mixes with, like, when you're budgeting for us, it's going to be sort of Asian segments, how it all ramps up. So Asian, obviously the Asian market, I think, will recover first when things happen, is our opinion.
So is it growth from 2020 or still flat?
Sorry?
Is it going to be growing from 2020 or still flat?
No, 2021.
Will it be from the actual, are you showing growth or are you keeping it flat?
Next year. It depends on the property, right? And it depends on your markets. Again, it's all, like I was saying before, it's all based on where you're located and your market segments, right? So to use Ho Tram again, casino, it's Asian business and domestic market. The Western market is very, very limited for us down there. So we're showing a little bit of growth down there. That's our plan, should the sort of open, but then other city hotels are a little bit less because they rely more on the business sector and the Western leisure, like US market or something like that.
Just a quick note of
Yes.
that.
Thank you, Chris.
The question you're asking is, and the answer you're looking for is, what's your debt service next year? What do you have to tell the bank? If you need to refinance next year, and you want to negotiate down, then you paint the rosier picture, and then you refinance, and the bank resyndicates the debt, right? So it depends what you have to tell your debtors. Different way of putting it.
Douglas?
In our
Ignacio?
case, just on the budgeting point, I mean, we instructed the hotels we're involved with to zero base their budgets, you know, to not sort of try and take 2019 actuals and I'll work it out and I'll percentage off this. It just start again, start from zero, rebuild a new budget on an entirely new set of costs. It's been interesting that the big brands are still working on the same budget schedule. Most of the big brands have actually finished their budgets for next year. And I really just have no idea what's coming when they're going to start presenting these budgets. But yeah, like Craig, we told everyone to put together 3 scenarios. We also told the hotels, leave it as late as possible. If we have to be putting a budget together in January, the longer that we can wait, and hopefully there'll be some international flights coming in and there'll be some better signs of lift coming into the destinations, we can plan better for the future. But right now, someone producing a budget that was sort of cast in July or August for next year is it's a waste of time.
Yeah. Ignacio?
No, in our case, and to answer your question, I mean, next year is definitely a different exercise. But we are doing 2 things different compared to other years. We rely more in our senior general managers. We are assigning 1 GM per country to help us, you know, hotel by hotel. But we definitely have to trust on our GM more than ever. There is no choice. And we are talking earlier and more with our owner reps, and we are opening conversation. We are asking, what do you think, right? Because at the end, there are a lot of question marks. So more than ever, we have to have one message to the hotel team, not just 2 messages, one from the owner and one from the management company, right?
Okay, thank you. How are we doing for time? Have we got time for a little more, or should we shut up?
If you have anything to ask your team of experts.
Well, I just very quickly, in 30 seconds or less, can you, and sorry, Mara, I think we'll just have to hold that conversation to the coffee break. 30 seconds or less, your predictions for the next 3 years. Let's say not 2021.
Based on what we have looked at data, what we do see that recovery is going to happen. It's just about time, as most of us have agreed on how 2021 is going to be, is to keep it really flexible and be very, very, very fast to any changes in the environment that we see. And I think the hotels and the operators, whoever is going to be able to do it in the best fashion way, keeping it very flexible and really adapting to change and uncertainty, is going to come out strong.
30 seconds. Morgan?
I think there's going to be a dynamic shift in revenue management. In the past, we moved from yield to revenue. I think we're going to move from revenue to profit management, a combination of cost control, and revenue management, micro-segmenting your room categories to maximize profit mix in the next 3 years. People have been talking about it for a few years. Some hotel chains have experimented, but nobody's really executed because times were good. Times are not so good now, so it's time to look at it.
It's a good point. Ignacio?
Depends on the country. I think I've been living in China for 10 years before. I think we are confident China is going to do even in some cities better numbers than 2019. Depend on the control of the pandemic. More conservative definitely for Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Thailand, right? But Vietnam, especially in resort destination, we plan to have a good second semester in 2021.
Okay, good, great.
My forecast is that I think the next 6 months to 9 months will still be a little bit tough. And then when I think we'll start to see things hopefully recover. Obviously, one contributing factor to all this is the airlines need to get going once things start getting back to normal, right? And their airlift needs to match what it was before to drive numbers in. So I think the second half of next year I think we'll see some improvement early next year to a certain degree, but second half next year should pick up a little bit more, and then I think 2022 will hit the go button again, I think.
Thank you. Douglas?
Donald Trump goes to jail.
That's what I'm looking for. That's the kind of bold prediction.
Certainly, definitely, that's the one I'm looking for. Look, Mario talked before about 2024 as being the sort of target date, and I do agree. I think it's going to take that long to go back to 2019 levels. Bearing in mind also here in Vietnam, we've had a lot of capacity just came online as COVID hit, and we've still got to get back to where we were, absorb that capacity, and continue to build.
It's actually, I know Emirates Airlines, it's exactly that prediction. Their forecast is 2024. So I think Mauro has a question.
No, I don't have, but we have a question from our online audience for you, James. Why there are not female in the panel?
Sorry? Why are there no female on the panel? It's a very good question.
That's why I'm coming
So
up.
I promise that next year you'll bring a bit more
I would
variety.
I completely agree, because the last thing we want to have is a mammal. But I would refer back to Savills, who organized the panel. And please, it would be very, very good to have that. And I think also as operators, we touched on the development of local talent. I'm conscious that we're all sitting here as expatriates.
I promise you on the next event we'll do all female one. New, maybe you'll moderate. Yeah, women in hospitality. That's the new one. Yeah. Thank you everybody. New, please.
Please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the panelists.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we are going to have many other interesting sections.